prospective students who are on the call this morning. Welcome to our Boston University Journalism Master's Program overview. We are so glad you're here today. Thank you very much for coming. So on this call, we have faculty members who will teach you as an accepted student at Boston University in the Master's Program. We also have a graduate of the program, Andrea Aswahe, as well as a current student, Sukanya Mitra, who will be joining Professor Peter Smith. Now, Sukanya and Andrea can give you the inside scoop on navigating our master's program, and I can too. I am also a graduate of the program about 8 years ago now. I'm now on faculty teaching undergraduates, and I will be your host today. My name is Noelle Graves, and if you're going to be joining us in the fall of 2023, there's a couple folks many folks you can look forward to working with. One quick advance, hang on. There we are. This is Tina McDuffie. She's an Edward R. Murrow award-winning radio and television reporter. She teaches our graduate students video enterprise reporting, among many other courses. Now, we know that many of you come from other fields and you'd like to apply your expertise to the field of journalism, and we're delighted that you're here to do that. And we know that some of you are coming straight from undergraduate journalism programs and you'd like to advance your skills and bring them to the next level. We want to assure you that our faculty will meet you right where you're at, will come alongside you and help you down that path that you'd like to go on as you learn the craft of journalism. And when you graduate, you're going to be joining quite a distinguished group of alumni, and I just wanted to show you a few of them right now. They include over 20 Pulitzer Prize winners. I think we are up to about 24 now. And among the winners are Kimbrielle Kelly. She's on the right there with the LA Times, where she runs their Washington bureau. Alexandra Wimley is on the left. I remember Alexandra from the class we had together. She's a photographer with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Tyler Hicks is in the middle there. He's a war and conflict photographer with the New York Times. And then Michael Hawley is a national television and radio sports commentator, Pulitzer Prize winner who's here on faculty. Our faculty produce much award-winning work, and they help their students to do the same. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to the faculty that you have here and our guests. Mitch Zukoff is pictured on the left. He's going to speak first. Mitch is on faculty. And I mute our friend. There, thank you very much, Lori. Mitch Zukoff is on the left. He will speak first. Mitch is on faculty and he's the author of 8 nonfiction books, including most recently Fall and Rise, the story of 9/11. It's a New York Times bestseller, and Mitch also wrote 3 previous books that were New York Times bestsellers. Mitch also directs our Power of Narrative Conference. This is our national writing conference that every year draws some of the biggest names in narrative nonfiction, and as a graduate student, you will attend to if you would like and be a part of that and meet all those writers. Our department chair, Bill McKean, is also here on the call. He's second there from the left. He is at our Black Media Symposium, which is being held on campus right now, but he wanted to be sure to be here and he wanted to say hello. Bill, if you can hear me, we'd love to say hi to you. You know you're in the middle of another conference.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to welcome you, and I hope you have interest in this program. It's a wonderful program, and no better place to study journalism than the place where American journalism began. Boston's a great city, and we sort of use it as our laboratory. But I'll be on mute much of the time because I just stepped out of a conference that I'm in right now. But please, if you have any questions, please get in touch with us. Thanks, Noelle.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for making time for us, Bill. We know you're doing double duty today. Thank you. After Mitch, we'll hear from Andrea Aswahe. She's pictured on the right. She's a graduate of the program. She was a reporter for 2 of our NPR Boston affiliates, both WBUR and WGBH, where she was a producer. And she now works as a senior producer for Rococo Punch. After Andrea, we're going to hear from faculty member John Baynard. He's a documentary filmmaker, cinematographer, and photojournalist, and 2-time recipient of the Robert F. Kennedy Award in Journalism. Oops, I apologize if is that blocking your view at the top? I'll just move that over. There we go. Next, we're going to have faculty member Sherrod Blakely, who's pictured center. He's an NBA content creator for the Facebook's Bulletin.com website, as well as NBA front office insider for Bleacher Report, and the creator and co-host of A-List podcast. After Sherrod, we'll hear from Maggie Mulvihill. She's pictured top left. She's a veteran data and investigative journalist too, and as a faculty member, has guided her students to numerous awards and national recognition. After Maggie, we will hear from David Abel, who's a reporter with the Boston Globe. And David just joined us this fall on faculty. Welcome, David. He's going to be talking about his work as a documentary filmmaker, and we'll get to see one of his trailers. Wrapping up our time here will be Peter Smith, pictured upper left. I'll make sure that this is out of your way so you can see him. There it is. Peter is of course on faculty, and he's a veteran photojournalist, and he's brought his student Sukanya Mitra, who's currently enrolled in the program and working on a project with Professor Smith. So thank you so much for being here, Sukanya. I'm glad to introduce all these colleagues to you, and we're so glad you're here today. Thank you for making time for us. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mitch. Thank you, Mitch.
Thanks so much, Noelle. I'm going to share my screen in a second. So as Noelle mentioned, I teach narrative nonfiction. So let me start with a story. About almost exactly a year ago, I got a call. I hope I'm sharing.
You are. Thank you, Mitch.
I got a call about this guy, and he is, that's a picture from Kabul in the summer of 2021, which, as you recall, was the scene of, tremendous chaos as the US forces left and the Afghan army and government collapsed on contact and gave over to the Taliban. And I got a call saying, there's this guy I think you may want to talk to. And he looks military or paramilitary. He's actually a really unusual American diplomat named Sam Aronson. He's a young Foreign Service officer who volunteered to help with the evacuation. He was between assignments in August, and he sort of just put up his hand and said, sure, I'll help. He finds himself in Afghanistan, in Kabul, at the Kabul airport, in the midst of this chaos. And he discovers that the CIA is running a back door to the airport. And Sam is going to, over the course of the few days he's there, start going off book, as it's known, breaking the rules and bringing in at-risk Afghans who had helped the American process over the past 20 years. And then, so I'm like, yeah, I'd like to talk to this guy. And then I find out there's another story embedded in it. And there's a story about Sam ended up interacting, and his story sort of coincided with the story of Omaira Kadiri. She was an Afghan feminist, a celebrity in Kabul, because she re-won custody in this patriarchal society over her son in a divorce. And that's her son, Siavash. And of course, she's highly outspoken. She's an author. She's just a remarkable woman. And she's targeted for death by the Taliban. And so that's the beginning of the sort of first call I get out of the blue, literally out of the blue. And so what I do and what I teach and what I'm going to help, if you come to our program, what we're going to work on together is essentially trying to figure out the story. And so I'm applying basically a checklist to this story. Is there a central question, a conflict, a narrative engine that's going to drive this story to our audience? And certainly, I think it was pretty obvious there was one here. Are there great main subjects, characters? And I don't love the word characters in nonfiction, but they are great subjects. Are there people we can attach to? Are we going to be feeling what they're going through and want to experience it with them? And in narrative, always there's a chronology, there's a time frame. And it was quickly obvious this was going to be a story told in August of 2021, as tightly focused as possible. I've written books on a time frame of as short as 13 hours. That was the name of one of my books that became a movie about what happened in Benghazi. Do we have access? And it turned out I was going to be able to get access to both Omaira and Sam and Siavash. Are the stakes high enough? And what we do there is we ask ourselves as writers, as creators of narrative, are the stakes big enough for a book, 90,000, 100,000 words? Is it a magazine piece? Is it a shorter newspaper length feature? And I, in this case, determined that there was a book. The stakes were high enough. This was life and death. Are there complications? are there the twists and turns of a story that elevate it from, if a story just goes in a straight line, hi, we met, we fell in love, lived happily ever after, I don't know, that's a tweet, that's not a book. And is there a resolution? Do we have an outcome? Is there an answer? And so does it have the full narrative arc of a beginning, middle, and an end? And all that, in this case, worked. And so I wrote, and this book will be published in April by Random House. But as I was getting started, and where it relates to what we're talking about here, and I want to be careful of time, is I immediately involved my students. And so Emma Glassman Hughes, who's a current graduate student, immediately came on board as the research assistant to this book. And so Emma got a close-up experience of how a book is made. And so we were talking all the time, and she built, 2 of these. This is Emma's work. This sort of, I needed somebody to say, what was happening, not in Sam's world, but in everything around it. And so she built these amazing sort of timelines, 2 of those binders. And now Emma and her cohort are in my narrative nonfiction class. And so basically the same things that I'm applying to my work, they're applying to their work. So Emma's doing an amazing story right now, a semester-long project, basically from sea to plate. She's following a fish from the moment it's caught, and she was out on the boat when it was caught, to a group of refugees in Rhode Island, who are African immigrants who are trying to make sure that they preserve their culture and are frankly having struggles feeding their family. So she's following one fish from the moment it's caught to the moment it's served to these refugees. Others, in the class, somebody, Yuning, is doing a 1-month archaeological dig, following a dig and telling the story of Boston in a way through what was happening and each layer, each onion peeled back. Mira is doing a semester-long narrative about a paraplegic woman at Harvard trying to find love. How do you use data maps when you are, have to reveal this thing about yourself from the first date, and on and on. Sorry, Eliza's doing this amazing story on people facing eviction. So the same things I'm applying in my work, they're applying in their work. And I would love to teach, I'd love to teach this stuff. And so I want to sort of, I could go on and on, as my colleagues will know, but I'm going to stop, but say 2 last things. One is, if you have questions about this work, and I teach these concepts both from the first, introduction to news writing all the way up to the advanced narrative nonfiction class. We're applying the same storytelling skills, the same ideas throughout the program. And so 2 last things. One is, if you have questions, it's my last name at bu.edu. I would love to hear from you, and so send me an email. And the second is, as you're deciding where to study, my pitch for this program really are the people on this call. I am so proud to be part of this faculty, and I'm so proud of the work that my colleagues are doing. And check it out. Look at and see, when you're thinking about, do I go here? Do I go to another wonderful program? What are they making? Not what they made 30 years ago, not what they, where they worked, but what are they making? And I would argue that the faculty of Boston University, top to bottom, are some of the best practitioners as they teach. So we're doing the work live, not telling you about when dinosaurs ruled the earth. And I made this thing in 1957, it's not relevant. And, along those lines, it's not a surprise who we just attracted to be our next chairman. So the current editor of the Boston Globe, Brian McGrory, the editor-in-chief of the Globe, if you come here in September of 2023, is going to be the chairman of the department. And while he's also currently writing a column for the Boston Globe. That's who we are. We're practitioners who teach at, I would argue, the highest level. So I'll stop sharing, and I will turn it over. That's my
Thank
fault.
you. Thank you so much, Rich. I really appreciate that. It is exciting. I think Andrea Aswahe has had some technical troubles. So I don't think she's going to be able to join us this morning, which I feel, which is so unfortunate. We would have enjoyed hearing from her. May we go next then to John Baynard. John Baynard, do you have a clip that you'd like me to show for you? So I'll just take a quick second to share my screen. Would you like to do a by way of introduction?
I was going to talk before.
Sure.
Here at BU, I teach visual storytelling, which is learning how to tell stories with photographs and with video. I'm teaching in a new class on video magazine storytelling, and then I teach a class in documentary making, and as well as multimedia journalism, which I think sort of it's a compilation of all the sort of mediums in journalism, and so I also continue to work and shoot documentaries, produce. I'm right now working on a project, a multimedia project with UNICEF on their work in Ukraine. I was in Ukraine and Poland this past summer, and I get to bring that into class when we talk about it. In my documentary class, I have a clip with their 3 very short clips from 3 different documentaries. And I also using something from the documentary class, an assignment where they shoot a city symphony, which is a genre of documentaries. And I use those as the bumpers for the 3 stories. So here they are.
This is my grandma, and every few days she has her arguments with Instagram. Wherever we go as a family, people often say that she is young at heart, and I agree. From posting on social media and using text messages, to watching stock market news and knowing what K-pop is, my grandma is living quite a young blood's life, despite being 84 years old.
Try to do the right thing.
I'm Houston Bernard. I'm a country singer from Oklahoma originally, and I grew up in Alaska and Massachusetts. Even at a young age of 5, I remember writing jingles and singing and performing and rocking out.
Coming over here to remind you that there is a world going on and we're capable of doing good things. My name is Claire, and I have been in prison for aggravated trafficking and crack cocaine.
There's a lot of women that don't get the opportunity to have a second chance. I think it's really hard. And I think animals should have the same as well. I don't think animals should be forgotten either.
For these horses here, a lot of times their jail is when they are with somebody who doesn't take care of them. When they come here, they are basically getting out of prison. They are going to a place where they're going to be taken care of. These horses are torn up inside, or they don't trust people, or they don't know what's going to happen to them the next day. We don't know what's going to happen from day to day. It's on us to make ourselves a better person.
So anyway, I always get excited at all these classes. I love to see what the students come up with and how they look at the world. And I'm also learning from them. So If you need to, like to have a question for me, I'm at jbaynard@bu.edu.
Thank you so much, John. Sharad, would you like to talk to us about some of your work?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am, as you mentioned, my name is Sharad Blakely, and I teach a in-depth reporting class. I teach sports journalism and also sports storytelling, which, even though that's what we call it, I think you can kind of tell by my colleagues, we're more about showing stories than telling them, because that's really how stories resonate. And one of the things I try to do with my students is bring not only my own in the moment journalistic experience to the table, but also keep it in real time, so that when there are events that are happening, we have the ability to pivot while still staying within the constraints and the syllabus that we have. An example of that, and I'm going to share my screen with you in a second here. We were working on, in one of my classes, we were working, let's see, hold on a second, let me find the right photo. I'm so horrible about sharing screens. I am so bad about that. Let's find it. All right, I think this is it. Let's see. One of the things that we tend to do in my classes is we try to bring current events to bear when they are within the framework of what we're trying to do. And here, I'm sure some of you heard about the Boston Celtics and their head coach, who was suspended for a year for improper relationship with a coworker. And for those of us in the reporting world who are covering this event, this screenshot that I just showing you now was the first opportunity that the media, the folks who were paid to do this stuff professionally, had a chance to hear from the head coach and the co-owner. Well, this video was also my students' opportunity to work with the same material that working journalists had to work with. And so we were able to come up with different types of stories based upon this interview that, again, just like working journalists have to do research and find ways to craft the story that goes beyond just what they're saying at this press conference, my students had to do the same. And so that gives them a real life experience of what it's like to do the kind of things that working journalists have to do. And that's something that we do a lot of talking about, and we pivot to when the opportunity presents itself within the framework of what we're trying to do in class and accomplish. So there were news stories, there were feature stories, there were issue trend stories that they were able to generate from this press conference. Just like for the working journalists, they were issue stories and trend stories. And so they were doing the same thing that everyone else who was covering this event was doing. And that gives you a firsthand perspective on just what it's like to be a journalist in this market. And that's one of the great things about Boston, whether it's sports, news, fashion, you name it. There are opportunities to engage in real-time individual things that will give you a better feel for what you can do and what you can get better at. The other thing I wanted to point out with my classes, and I will stop sharing this now. There we go. Is one of the things I really try to get my students to understand is that everything that we're doing is not about you getting a job. It's about you laying the first brick towards a career. And that has to be part of the mindset when you are a grad student, because you're a little bit closer to being in this alternate reality that we like to call the real world. And we're trying to make sure that you have the tools necessary to be successful in that. And one of the things that I do with my students, particularly my grad students, is I work with lots of different people who are in different positions that can aid and assist. And I have a podcast that I do, and I've had one of my students be the producer of that podcast every year. And that's something that, and again, I don't just throw you in the middle of the ocean and say, figure out how to do this. I actually have someone who comes in, trains my students how to do that, and then they take over. And it's hard to get real life practical experience as a producer, as a student, at something that is beyond university sanction. And so I've had a couple of students do that, and they have gone on to do some pretty cool things. I have one student, my first producer, who is now doing work with The Ringer, which is a sports digital publication that primarily focuses on producing podcasts. And I have another student who is currently my producer now. And again, the opportunities that exist in this BU system I just don't think you're going to find that elsewhere. And as Mitch pointed out earlier, we're not talking about stuff that happened years ago. We're doing this right now. You're getting real-time experience. You probably can't see it clearly, but over my shoulder here is a typewriter from the 19s, pick a decade in the 1900s. And I keep it on my wall as a reminder of what not to do. I don't want to make the mistake that so many do of falling back on what used to be, how things used to be. That's not how things used to be. That's just not something that I want my students to feel. I was a little bit late getting on this call because I had a student in here who wanted to talk about their senior project for next semester. And they have an amazing idea. And I apologize for being a little bit late, but I get kind of excited when students come with great ideas that they have actually thought out, and we go back and forth on how to make it better. And some ideas they have are really great, and some ideas I have are really great, and then we figure out how to make them amazingly awesome. And that's what we do. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create opportunities and avenues for you to be the absolute best version of yourself. And again, in my classes, that's something that we spend a lot of time focusing on, is just figuring out not so much what your mistakes are, but how can you be better? And John Baynard, I love just the descriptions of your class. And that's one of the other things too. Having colleagues who have different skill sets and strengths is only going to make you as a student better, because you're going to be learning different skills and tools that will make you a more complete and well-rounded journalist. In the spring, I'm going to be teaching a smartphone reporting class, which I'm super duper excited about, because that allows journalists who frankly don't have the ability to have a big, bulky camera. You can actually do journalism literally from the pocket of your coat or your jacket. And I'm excited about that. And it's, again, that's the thing that I love about BU, is that there are opportunities to be actively engaged in creating lanes that make sense for the future. We don't spend a lot of time focusing on how things used to be. We're focusing on what can we do now to build bridges for the future. One of the things I talk to my students all the time about is that when you're in this process of journalism, it's all about building bridges. You don't have to necessarily go across that bridge, but it's nice to know it's there if you need to. And that's one of the things that we talk a lot about, and we do about. Again, as I mentioned earlier, even though a lot of our classes involve like storytelling of some kind or some semblance, we're really more about story showing. And that, to me, has much more long-term sustainable value than just telling you what we do. We show you. Mitch is writing amazing books. I do podcasts. John is doing stuff with UNICEF in a multimedia fashion. We're all showing what we do. And yes, we got to talk about it, but you can see that we're not just about talk. We're more than that. So I look forward to seeing all of you, hopefully, in the fall. And that is all I got today.
Thank you so much, Sharad. That's wonderful. I love that you're tapping into the collegiality idea. We all help work together to bring the students where they want to be. It's great. Maggie, thank you so much for being here today. And would you tell us some of the amazing work you're doing with your students?
Hi, you guys. Hi, Olivia, Alina, Kevin, Kit. Hi, I'm Maggie Mulvihill, and I teach data journalism, media law and ethics, and introduction to reporting. I'm also a working journalist. I wanted to show you some of my students' work that they've published, the award-winning work that they've done, where they're working now, so that you understand that this is a great investment of your time and your money, this program, because it does produce results in terms of getting jobs. And so I'm just waiting to get screen sharing rights.
Okay,
And
I'm lucky.
I have them. All right, so everybody can see my screen. And let me just show you what we have done. All right. So you have to work hard on stories, that's for sure, but it does pay off. So this was a story. This was one of our grad students, Henry Kaczynski, published in the Washington Post last summer for a project we did with the Howard Center for Investigative Reporting. We've done a couple of collaborations with them, and our students have been in the Washington Post 3 times with work that they produced out of my class. And so 3 other students got taglines. Henry got a byline. He's graduating in December. And then they also were published nationally in the Associated Press. These are some of our grad students here. You can see their byline. And here's John Hilliard. He's a reporter now at the Boston Globe. He got a front page Globe story for a story he did in my class. And why I'm showing you this is that you can see that you can use the clips that you get in our classes. I teach mostly, online and print journalism to as leverage to get a job and start building your career, as Sharad was talking about earlier. So this is John's story. I guess I wrote it with him, which is a real privilege for me. I've shared bylines with my students a bunch of times. And here's a couple other students in the Boston Globe, Mia and Sophia. And you can see this came out of our data journalism work. And Mia is now a reporter for Town Hall, and Sophia is a data journalist in Rhode Island. So I do a lot of collaborations with other news outlets, and we worked with the Center. This is a story we did for the Globe. We worked for the Center for Public Integrity. This was a story we published in 2010 on campus sexual assaults, and a bunch of our students are listed there. That was a tough story, but they really did excellent reporting on it. It took quite a long time, several months to finish the reporting. Like I said, I like to share bylines with my students, and sometimes we do stories together for the New Bedford Light, which is a really well-respected news outlet in Massachusetts. I've done stories with them on the state. We have a state drug lab crisis that I write about frequently. So these are some of the clips here. And these are our students now who got hired at the New Bedford Light. Anastasia and Grace Ferguson are both working there now. Here are a couple of our students who were published last spring of 2021. This was a national story we did on COVID workplace safety, and that helped Shweta get the first ever ESPN fellowship for investigative reporting at American University. And she is a sports journalist. So she was able to use that clip to help get a job. This was a story we did for the Globe on juvenile killers in Massachusetts. This was published on the front page of the Globe. And all of our students are now working as journalists. They were finalists for the Livingston Award, which is a really prestigious journalism award. And they actually won a couple other awards. So Kirsten is at ProPublica now as a reporter. Sarah Favit is teaching data journalism at USC, and she is a freelance journalist in California. And Jenna, who also worked on that story, is doing legal affairs reporting down in DC. We have developed somewhat of a pipeline to ProPublica, which is a really well-respected investigative news outlet. And this was our graduate student, Renee Dudley, who just actually wrote a book. And she is at ProPublica. We also sent Sydney Lupkin to ProPublica, and Sydney did this story with me on stimulus funds, again, for the Boston Globe, well, back in 2009. And Sydney just got hired in the last year at NPR. Other stories we've done in the Washington Post, and a couple of our students got bylines on these. This was a story that we did on COVID workplace safety. And these stories, these are our students. Haley's at Fox now. Jasmine is working at BU, and they got national bylines out of the work that they did in class. I have just a couple others. Another story we did, a collaborative story we did with NPR and the Center for Public Integrity. Alex Burris was our student, and she is now working at the Indianapolis Star as a reporter. More stories for the Globe on homelessness, the front page of the Globe story that we did with our working class. Also won a bunch of awards, finalist for IRE, first place winner for the Society of Professional Journalists investigative reporting category for students. And those guys are all working as journalists. This is my final student. I'm very proud of him. He dug up a story all by himself that was published in the Globe on congressional financial disclosures. And he did that work in class and used that again to get hired, partially as leverage to get hired at Mississippi Today. So now Alex is working as an investigative reporter and environmental reporter there, and he's done fantastic work. So we do a lot of great work in class, and our graduates are working all over the country at very prestigious news outlets. These are some more of them. And you certainly would have the same opportunities, and we would love to see you in our classes and producing work like this. So thank you so much for listening. I'm going to turn it over to David.
I'll say a few words first before you show that trailer. If that
sounds good.
So I just want to say how thrilled I am to hear from my colleagues. I am the newest faculty member, I think, on this call. I just started this semester, and after 20 plus years, I won't say how long, as a reporter at the Boston Globe and other journalism venues. And I just want to say that there is such an amazing and deep amount of talent on this faculty that I am jealous of you, because I really, if possible, want to audit their classes and learn from them and just be a sponge. And I'm hoping actually to do that. I would love, Maggie, to take your class. I would love to take Mitch's class. I would love to be a fly on the wall to see how John and Peter do what they do. And I'm actively following in the footsteps of Noelle right now, because I've been given a baton to teach a course that's the entry level course at BU for undergrads into the College of Communication. And I have to say I've sort of entered Noelle's brain in a way that I think few other people have had the pleasure to do, because I have a front row seat to her thinking and her wisdom. So I'll just say a few words about my career, and then I'll share a clip. But I have done all kinds of things as a reporter at the Boston Globe, where I'm still continuing to work as a contributing writer, and also as a full-time documentary filmmaker. And I'll get into that in a sec. But in short, I started writing for the Globe from Latin America. I was working as a stringer back in the day when that sort of thing was possible, as a foreign correspondent in Cuba, and started writing for the Miami Herald and the San Francisco Chronicle and the Houston Chronicle and the Boston Globe, among a bunch of other papers. And that was going well until eventually the Cubans got tired of my reporting and deported me. And after my deportation, I had to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life and where I was going to go next. And I ended up moving to Washington, D.C. and started covering national security issues for a journal, and continuing to freelance for lots of papers, including the Globe. And eventually, after covering the war in the former Yugoslavia over the renegade province of Kosovo, I was offered a full-time job to come to Boston and work for the Globe. And over the years, I've covered everything from academia to poverty to terrorism. And for the last decade, I have covered the environment as my main story, particularly climate change. And my mandate is to teach science journalism here, and my focus will be primarily on environmental journalism. So if that is of interest to any of you guys, I'm your prof. So look me up and hit me up, and I'm happy to talk to you. And you can also find me at DABEL at bu.edu, and I'm very easy to find online. David Abel, you can just Google it, ABEL. But I'll just say a couple of words about my work. So in addition to being a print reporter for many years now, I did something that is kind of like nirvana for journalists, for mid-career journalists, about a decade ago, where I got to take a year's leave from my work at the Globe to do a fellowship for journalists at Harvard called a Nieman Fellowship. And during that time period, I'd become more interested, as newspapers became more multimedia organizations, interested in telling stories in different ways. And in short, I was able, by luck and a little bribery, to get into a documentary filmmaking class that was primarily for undergrads, and they didn't really want fellows involved because they figured we weren't going to do the work. And to make a long story short, for the final class project, I was making a short film about the first little person to run the Boston Marathon. And I spent a few months filming this incredibly dynamic 3'9" dynamo of a woman and a runner and a person. And what ended up happening was, on the day of the marathon, I was with her as she was getting ready, and I followed her to the starting line, and then I went to the halfway point, and then I made my way to the finish line. And I didn't quite have the right credentials, but by hook or crook, I was able to persuade the folks there to allow me to get to the finish line, where I was planning to film what I thought was going to be the triumphant ending of this story. And as I was still learning how to use a camera, all of a sudden, as I was watching thousands of runners make their final steps to the finish line, all of a sudden a bomb exploded about 15 steps from where I was standing. And then about 12 seconds later, another bomb exploded. And if you've ever seen any of the footage from the aftermath of the Boston marathon bombings, you've probably seen my footage from that day on April 15th, 2013. And that was what led to my first short film. And because that film had the wrong ending, I spent the next year continuing to follow the subject, and then made my first feature film about the comeback of the city. And I ran the marathon with her and almost died because I was carrying a camera the whole way. And from there, I went on to return after a year of covering the aftermath of the bombings. I returned to covering environmental issues, but had the bug of making films. And with actually a former student of mine, and I should just say I have learned probably more from some of my students than I've probably taught them. And I don't know if that says anything about me or them, but I should say I've been incredibly fortunate to learn so much from my students. And one of the students who I got reconnected with, I've made 5 feature films with. And Noelle, if you want to show the latest, my most recent film was just nominated for a national Emmy, and here's the trailer for that one.
The right whale is an extraordinary creature. It's really one of the wonders of the living world. But if something in our management doesn't change, the direction of the population points to 0, and that's extinction.
The North Atlantic right whale is considered one of the most endangered species on the planet.
This would be the first large whale in modern history that would go extinct.
%85 of the right whale population now bears scars that indicate entanglement injury. This was a big problem, and it's an urgent problem.
It's a tragedy that we're losing the right whales. It's emblematic of large-scale changes that are happening on the planet.
Human beings can exist without biodiversity, and this is maybe a harbinger of where we're going.
We need to put as much pressure as we can on the agency to step up and take action right now.
I don't think the urgency can be overstated.
Human action is killing these whales, and human action has the ability to save them.
Lobstermen are stewards of the sea, and they don't want to entangle anything.
I sat here and listened to environmentalist after environmentalist tell me what a murderous individual I am.
My opinion about the whales is fuck them. What more can we do? Eventually, they're going to die off. It's going to happen no matter what.
As your governor, I will do everything I can to defend Maine's lobster industry in the face of this absurd federal overreach.
The challenge is to find ways for the fishing industry and the right whales to coexist in the same waters.
Noah is the fox guarding the chicken coop. You're going to be fired for being a liar and a person who works to kill off the right whale.
One of the problems is that fisheries are one of the main factors that are endangering protected species. You end up with one organisation deeply conflicted with its mission.
I'm actively working on 2 film projects, and I've had some help from a recent graduate of the graduate program at BU, and she's been phenomenal. And so if you guys join, I hope you might be able to help out as well.
Terrific. Thank you so much, David. We have perfectly 5 minutes left. This was so well timed. Next will be joining us, Peter Smith, working with students at Economitra. Thank you so much for coming, both of you.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you all. Wow, I'm so impressed with this program. I want to go here. I mean, I teach here, but if I had it to do over, if I was to start my life over again and I wanted to be a journalist, why wouldn't I want to go here? I'm like Sherrod's enthusiasm for, his new class and a veteran journalist who starts a new class on mobile reporting and it's just fired up about it. It's like, that's just wonderful to see. I mean, that enthusiasm is, I think, is in great journalists. And I think that never dies. And I think that's really important. And same with David. David, that's heartbreaking. That film that you made, it's just like so important. It's so important for us to understand that. It's, you know, it's hard not to avert your eyes, you know, and you have to be such a brave person to undertake that kind of project and watch this destruction and this horrible, you know, elimination of a species. And it's like, takes a special person to do that. I'm not even sure even all journalists can do that, but you know, you did it, and maybe I could have at one point, but now it's just like, it's so heartbreaking. But that's what makes journalists special. They can go out and you know, report on things that are really difficult that we need to know about. So anyway, I'm fired up about the program. You guys are fired up. I would say just 3 quick things about our wonderful program that has not too much I can add to what's been said here, but you know, Boston makes us great. We have you know, if you're looking to report on a beat, it's all here, you know, sports or music or culture or you know, it's all here to report on. It's a great city. And you know, our faculty make us great. Now, we just heard all of that, and they're just wonderful stories about what our faculty do. It's so impressive. That makes us great. I mean, they're wonderful mentors. This is a place of great mentorship. And, you know, but the thing that, you know, makes us the most special, the thing that really makes us incredible is our students and what our students achieve, what they do. And it's wonderful to be part of that, wonderful to see that, wonderful to be part of that energy. You know, I started here back in 1989, and that's got to be the favorite part of my job, you know, watching to see that incredible growth, that curve of incredible growth of the gaining the tools and the ethics and the principles of what we do, and then going out and knocking out a great story for the first time and having that wonderful experience and that pride. That's what makes, you know, makes it special. And I feel like our grad students do quite well. Everybody's worried, like, where am I going to get a job and how am I going to get a job? It's like, I forget who said, maybe it was the Sharrods, and it's like, but that's not what the emphasis is. The emphasis is on, you know, telling stories and getting into a place where you're telling stories that you believe in, and you know, people will see that, and that'll make a big difference. So yeah, I was going to play a clip, you know, from one of my students, Justin. I'll just talk about it briefly. Justin Saglio did a story about gentrification in Chinatown, and you know, he was smart enough to like get into somebody's home while an eviction was going on. He got there probably at 3 in the morning, I don't know, and waited for the landlord to come, or actually the building super, to throw this poor woman out. And he documented it, and it was yelling and screaming, and you really felt the emotion. What does this mean for somebody to lose their home? It's not just a quote or a sound bite or, you know, the politician saying, yeah, we need to do something. We saw it on the ground, and also heartbreaking to watch, but so important for us to really, you know, what's it like to lose your home, and you know, and what people are facing in Chinatown from gentrification. You know, Tufts is expanding. You know, downtown corporate Boston is expanding, and everybody wants a piece of their real estate. Anyway, Justin did an amazing job. Went on to Harvard University to be a video shooter over there, and now he's an independent multimedia producer, and he's crushing it. So anyway, I think most of our students do great. I think the ones that do the greatest are the ones that sound like the journalists you've been listening to. They're so enthusiastic. They want to get out there and they want to get into it, and they're not going to take no for an answer. Just real quick, I had one student, Sarah Silbigger, and she was in my class the first day, and I gave the assignment. So, okay, you've got 2 weeks to do it. And she kind of went into a little mini rage. She goes, what? She's like, 2 weeks to do it. And I said, yeah, was that okay? And she goes, no, this should be due tomorrow. What do you mean? I'm a journalist. I'm here to hit the street now, to write the story and come back tomorrow, or photograph the story. And I just love that. She's like, do you want to? I said, okay, Sarah, it can be due tomorrow for you. Everybody else gets 2 weeks. But anyway, that's the enthusiasm that our great students have. And I know those students will do well. They will definitely do well. I think some people come here and find out maybe they don't want to do journalism, but they want to use those communication skills in every way. And I've seen that a lot. So, you know, there's various ways to get to where you want to be. And that was all to lead up to, like, what makes us special is our students. And Sukanya was walking by the office just the other day. It's like, I think I got a story. I'm looking for, you know, somebody to mentor my professional project. And she told me, and I listened for an hour, and I was like, what? It's like, that's amazing. And she went out there and did it. And I saw, some of the video, and she's nailed it. She's got like an amazing story she's building. Over to you, Sikanya.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, Professor Smith. It's been a privilege to be a part of the BU journalism cohort, and I've had the privilege to be a student for most of our professors here. What I would say is my biggest takeaway as a grad student currently who graduates this December has been that you can explore and get into any field of journalism you like, and you would always have professors who will back you up and lead the way for you. There is no limit here. Even if you have no experience, for example, when I came into the master's program here, I came straight out of undergraduate, where most of my experience was in print. And that's what I thought I would be pursuing. But eventually, after coming to Boston, I realized that's not what I want to do. I want to get into the world of broadcast and want to be a news anchor one day. But with that being said, I had zero experience of being on camera. I had no idea how things work. So, but now I can say that with the classes I'm taking under the guidance of so many of our professors here, I do know how the world of broadcast essentially works. And for someone who had no experience and was so intimidated by the camera, I can say that now from that, I've moved on to loving the camera and loving being on camera. So you can explore and venture into any field, any aspect of journalism, and you best believe that you will have professors who are so extensively knowledgeable in every field you decide to do that it's more than anything, it's actually like a privilege to be a part of BU.
Thank you so much, Sikanya. That was so beautifully said. I want to thank everyone for participating today. And Lori, would you like to give us a final goodbye, perhaps where folks can get more information if they'd like to?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for attending, everybody. For more information, you can visit our website, which is bu.edu/grad. And then you can do a search for journalism. And also, if you have questions about the application process, please feel free to email us. We're at comgrad@bu.edu. So that's COMGRAD@bu.edu.
That's
and
great.
Yes, thanks to Maggie, who put her email in the chat as well.
Very much.
And we appreciate hearing from everybody. That was really inspiring. So thank you to our faculty and to Sikanya too.
It was our pleasure. So from all of us here at the Master's Program for Journalism at Boston University, thank you so much for attending. And we certainly hope we see you in the fall of 2023. Take care.